Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Transform Feedback into Growth with Web Surveys. My name is Dana Haddon, and I'll be your moderator. I work on the sales team here at Issuetrak, and I'm excited to host today's session. I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Paul Harris. Paul is our Senior Product Engineer, and he has trained thousands of Issuetrak customers, and today he's going to share how to create and run powerful online surveys. Surveys are important to collect feedback, opinions, and suggestions from your customers, internal and external. Issuetrak's Web Surveys module makes collection and analysis of data extremely simple. So, without any further ado, I'd like to kick things off by welcoming our Senior Product Engineer, Paul Harris. Paul, over to you.
Well, thank you, Dana. Thank you. You are way too generous and kind with your praise. Senior product guy. That makes me sound important or something. I really, and thousands of customers. I don't know. That sounds a little weird to me too. I guess it's true, but I don't know. I've done this a while. I'm familiar with the features of the surveys module, so it kind of makes sense to have me around on this survey. So let's dig in. Dana and I prepared some content for everybody. And the first thing we wanted to dig into, we want to talk about why we're here, right? Why should you guys care about Issuetrak Surveys module? Why is it important? Why even listen to your customer? Why even do surveys? Well, and that's the key thing. So I'm sure everybody's read my first point here. The surveys help you understand the voice of your customers. In fact, the survey is the voice of your customer. Now something I want to kind of tack on there is the internal customers and external customers part of that. Now, most of the people that I talk to that use the surveys module, in fact, most people that don't have the surveys module think this way too. They think of building questions and creating questions and sending them outside of your walls, outside of your organization, or outside of your company to get feedback from your customers, from your external customers, the people that are not sitting right with you every day. Well, that's not the only people you need to listen to. Sometimes we need to get feedback from the teams that we work with every day. Sometimes we need feedback from our internal customers also, and we don't want to forget those. The bottom line with what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to get to here, is that the uses for the surveys module, there's so many different ways you could configure it, ways you could use it, things, so many different types of feedback you could get, that the ways of using the surveys module are as many and varied as the ways that you could use Issuetrak, anything you could think of. All right, now, let's go back to that idea of the survey being the voice of the customer. And I want to illustrate that example a little bit more before we kind of put it down, before we send it out there. The idea of the survey, that idea, the notes and the tasks on an issue tell you what your team did, tell you what happened, right? It's very good at that. That's why we have notes and tasks on issues, because they remind you about what happened. I mean, if I submit a request over to Issuetrak's support team, I can go back and read those notes and see what tasks were completed and get a sense of what they did to solve my issue. What the notes and the tasks don't tell you, they don't tell you how that customer feels about how you resolve their problem, or how they feel about how you resolve their request. And that's important, right? Does that customer like the way you resolve their request? Are they happy with your service, the service you're providing? Are they going to come back and get more of that service? Are they going to be your customer again? Or on the other side of that, are they ready to leave? Are they thinking about walking away because you might have resolved their request, but maybe you didn't do it in a way that was satisfactory to them? And that kind of takes us to our next point here. Surveys help you benchmark your team's performance. And when we talk about this, we're talking about a relationship between you and your internal and external customers, the other teams that you work with, your external customers, the people you sell things to. There's a relationship there, and you need surveys to kind of tell you where you are in that relationship, to take the temperature of that relationship. Do they like you? Are they going to buy more of the service you provide? Do they need more? Or are they looking for other choices? Are they getting ready to leave, to walk away from that? Surveys are very powerful for doing that. Now, there's another idea here in benchmarking your team's performance, right? In taking the temperature of that relationship, we're also looking at goals and KPIs, right? That's where your goals and your KPIs kind of come in. They should tell you if you're making that relationship better, if you're improving that, or if you're not, or if things are falling off. That's where the benchmarking your team's performance really comes into play, is taking the temperature of that relationship and telling you, hey, we can improve here, or maybe we're not hitting our KPI there, so let's improve. And the last point I wanted to make, the last sort of why are we here idea, is that surveys help you close the loop with your customers, your respondents. And this kind of goes back to that idea, once again, it's related to that idea of the voice of your customer, survey response being the voice of your customer. Surveys are a great way for you to close that loop, a great way for you to get actionable feedback. Since you create the survey and you're asking for exactly the feedback you want, the surveys module gives you that ability to say, if I did it faster, would you like this more? Would our relationship be better? So this helps you go back and get that actionable feedback to improve your processes or your operations. And without the surveys module, without taking a sort of a larger look outside of the actual incidents or the actual tickets or the actual requests, without looking outside of that, you just don't have that view or that voice of your customer. Now, I'm sure that by this point in our presentation, we've only been going for a few minutes here, I'm sure everybody is chomping at the bit and everybody wants to see how these things look and get some information about the features involved and how they work. And I've got that, so it's time. Let's dig in here. Now I'm going to bring this up and right over here. And I wanted to look at a couple of example surveys. Now Dana has been nice enough to loan me one of her demo sites to work in. And you know, what do we do with nice people, right? We repay them by messing up their Issuetrak site. Sorry, Dana. Yeah, there's some cleanup she's going to have to do. I got in here and did a bunch of sample surveys and created some results and created some issues that she'll probably want to clean up later on. Thank you. No good deed goes unpunished, right? But she actually had a really good example, at least one really good example survey that I absolutely love here. It's this one. This one, she calls it the prospect questionnaire. And it starts off with this nice image of a car driving a nice drive along the shoreline. There's our logo in that image, right? You come down, there's a nice call to action. Thank you for taking the time. Thank the customer for their time. And please complete our quick service questionnaire. Now, I'll bet that we've all seen most of these things in the surveys that we fill out every day, right? As people that use the internet, you guys see these on a daily basis, right? From your banks, from the other online services that you use, from everywhere. They come from everywhere. And I just want to be very clear, Issuetrak is really robust. It's very easy to use, and there's a lot of flexibility in what we can do here. Now, every time you see something that's part of a survey, it's called an item in Issuetrak. So we're looking for the image item. That's the thing that made this image appear. And we're going to talk about items in a minute. But I wanted to show a couple of the items on this survey. You can see below our call to action, right, we're going to get automatically entered in a raffle, right? Hey, whoopee, I'm going to win something, right? But then you've got a checkbox item where you can do a multi-select. And below that, you've got my favorite, the open-ended, right? What best describes why you reached out to us. This allows the customer, gives that customer the room to tell you how they're feeling. It gives you the customer the room to get their thoughts out. And then as we come down the page here, you can see this next item is radio buttons. It's a single selection item, so you can only have one of these selected at a time. And there's another comment item, another large text item. And at the bottom, we've got these little short text guys like name and email address, where we're just going to enter a few words or a sentence into that. We don't have the room to enter the comments.
And Paul, I'm noticing that some of these questions look to be required.
That's right. You can see that some of these items, like item number 1 here, have a red asterisk next to them. And in the surveys that we've filled out in sort of the universal world of the internet, that star means that it's required. And we've all seen this before. It's normal behavior in the surveys that we've filled out. Now, what I want to be very clear is that you can mix and match what's required in Issuetrak, is the flexibility of it. And you can see that. Item number 1 here is required. And just like item number 2 also, you've got to type some text there so that you can submit your survey result and get entered into the contest, entered into the raffle. And as I scroll down, you can see at the bottom of the survey, 4 and 5 are not required. So this allows a customer, if they don't have time to fill out 4 or 5, if they want to submit anonymously, they can leave those blank and just get on with their day. So one of the other surveys I wanted to show here, I took another survey that Dana had in hers that was kind of long, and I shortened it up. I wanted to show another example survey. And you can see this is a little bit of a different look for a survey. It's not as, doesn't look as nice on the surface of it, but the key here is that I kept it short. 3 questions and you're done, you're out. This honors the respondent's time, the customer's time, which is something we always want to do. Don't ask them for more than they have to fill out. Now, the other thing I want you to notice here is that the text that's part of this survey that is heavily styled. We've got different colors of text. We've got specific colors of highlighting here to show our matrix question. We've got a blue progress bar, which we didn't have on some of the other, which we don't have on some of the other surveys, and a small Issuetrak logo. It's a little different look than some of the other surveys we're going to look at today. The idea is that I had our user interface person, Andrew Gerasi, take a look at this and change some of the settings that make up this survey to so that it's a little easier to read. And he didn't, as you can see, he didn't do a wholesale change here. He just tweaked it slightly to make it a little bit easier to read and a little bit nicer to look at so that you can get through it quickly and get out. Now, one of the other things that I like about this survey is this question number 2. You can see question number 1, I required it. I laid it out horizontally with the radio buttons, just like we had in our previous question, except this one's laid out horizontally. Question number 2, though, this is what's called a Likor scale. It means that you put up several topics or several areas of interest, and then the respondent tells you whether you agree, whether you're unsure, or whether you disagree to that topic. And it's a really quick way, a really easy way for the respondent to quickly give you results. You see, it's very dense on the page for a few number of clicks for the respondent. You're honoring his time. But it gives you a lot of that actionable feedback, a lot of the type of feedback you're looking for to make decisions about your processes and your operations. That's why the Likor scale is so powerful. And you'll see that reference to the Likor scale if you've worked with other survey products, or if you've done research about surveys, or done research about canvassing people. It's a very powerful way to get feedback from your customers, from your respondents, actionable feedback specifically. And of course, in this survey, I ended it with my all-time favorite, the open-ended, right? How do you feel? Would you please explain what happened? Now, I had one more survey I wanted to show everyone, one more example I wanted to show everybody. It's our MPS survey. And the reason I wanted to show everybody this is not because it's an NPS survey. It's because this was created by one of our marketing folks who is no longer with us, no longer in marketing. They took the colors from the Issuetrak logo, the dark blue, the light blue, the yellow, and they applied that to the formatting of this item, of this survey item. So you can see there's a small white logo up here, MPS. You can see the text. There's no more black and white in this survey. There's no more black in this survey. It's all blue, which is a little bit easier to read. Now, to me, the yellow here is a little much. It's a little over the top. So to me, it's like the yellow is kind of yelling at me. But I think this is okay. I wanted to illustrate how much you can actually change about this. And that kind of is a testament to the actual options you have. You can make this look however it needs to look using the surveys module, the appearance options in the surveys module. Now, the other thing I wanted to address here is the NPS, that NPS idea, right? Dana and I have lived, because we work at Issuetrak, and because in our careers, we live in NPS, right? Don't we? Right? Would you say that we've done this for years and years? We've talked about NPS. We've talked about improving our NPS scores, and this is an idea that you're going to hear when you research surveys, when you start thinking about what types of questions to ask. And this is one of those matrix questions. In this case, we spread it out to a 1 through 10 because that's what NPS requires. Now, NPS is the Net Promoter Score. And the idea of the NPS is the idea that most purchasing decisions are made based on word of mouth, based on advice. And this includes not just when you think about what car to buy or when you think about what services to use. This is when organizations and companies make decisions also, when teams make decisions. It's usually going to be based on advice from outside sources, from other people. Did they have a positive experience? Would they recommend this? So the NPS question really is, would you recommend me? Would you recommend my company? Would you recommend my service or this product to somebody else? And it's very powerful to know that. It becomes very actionable, right? Even more actionable is why would you or why would you not recommend me? Better yet. So you can improve that NPS score. So you can get actionable feedback and improve that NPS score. That's one of my favorites, the NPS idea. And that's something you're going to see when you look at creating surveys and things like that. I highly recommend it. Now, I think that kind of covers what we wanted to show you in the actual surveys themselves, the examples. But I also wanted to show you guys some of the settings and the building a survey and the parts and pieces here. So let's dig into that. And when you first get into Issuetrak Surveys module, and evidently I don't know where to click. I'm going to click, there we go. You're presented with a list of any surveys that have been created, which when you're just starting out, you won't have any, but you'll build them, and we will help. And you can see, once you build a survey and get it ready to deploy, you have the option of creating this thing called a survey rule. And I'm going to click Edit so we can see what this survey rule looks like. Now, what I really want to zero our audience in on is this text right down here. And let me make that, I think we've already zoomed it in. Let me go one step bigger so that everybody can kind of see that. An email will be sent to the submitter of the issue automatically, inviting them to fill out the selected survey when issue values match the criteria specified below as issues are closed. So that idea is that you build the survey, you get it ready, then you set up a rule, and there's nothing more for you to do except for look at results. You have that ability to set up the survey and send survey invitations automatically. And you can see for this survey, I called it sample for webinar. I know, really original, right? Very original. I said send it for all issue types that are closed, send it for all substatuses as issues are closed, send it for all organizations as issues are closed. And this gives you that ability to really brand not only the survey, to really direct the survey to the right things, but also to direct it to the right people to fill out. Maybe we only want internal people to fill out. Well, we can get that by selecting the organization. Or maybe we only want external people to fill it out. Well, then we could do that by directing organization, right? Just the other ones. And at the bottom is our interval, right? This survey, I set it up to go out every single time that a issue was closed, but yours might go out every 5th issue or every 2nd issue.
So we could customize a survey per issue type.
Sure.
Great.
Sure. And it's very clearly, you just select the issue type here, tell it which issue type to send that survey with. Now, the other thing I wanted to be very clear about is that automatically sending surveys results is good, right? Very nice, very easy for you and your team. But that's not the only way that we send survey invitations from an Issuetrak survey. With an Issuetrak survey, once we get it ready to deploy, we get a URL. We can request a URL for that survey. And then we can put that in an email, or we can put that on our intranet. We can publish that to a Slack channel. Everybody that clicks on that link is taken to that survey, and hopefully they fill it out. I know in my life, in my Issuetrak life, it's hard to get people to fill out survey results. But I know that Dana, because her surveys all look really nice, and because she's actually pretty good at this, she has a much better result than I do. She gets a lot more response result than I do. Now, when you're in the surveys module itself, I kind of wanted to show how the surveys module works. We're going to, like as I said earlier, we're going to do a second webinar about actually building and using best practices and deploying surveys, the nuts and bolts of it. But I want to give you guys enough since you know what the features are, what features are there. When you actually come into the surveys module to see the full list of surveys that have been created, we click on surveys, and it shows this list. Now, when you're first purchasing the surveys module, you'll have to start from scratch. Because Dana let me have her site, she had a few in here already, and I built a few more. And when you look, this is a little bit of a different layout than Issuetrak's normal interface. The left-hand menu is gone. So when you build one of these, you click into this design option first, then you work towards the right. You go from design to options, and once you've got your options set, then you deploy. And what I really wanted to dig in and show everybody is that deployment idea. So if we were going to send these automatically, the rules are on the page we just looked at. But let's say we want to send these manually. And there's our idea. We can copy that link right there. And we can put that in an email. We can use the email users facility of Issuetrak, utility within Issuetrak, to manually email a bunch of Issuetrak users. It's very flexible in the way we can deploy it. You see there's a web page link and then there's a pop-up window link also. And I think that gets us, that kind of gives us an idea about some of the key features that we have. We're going to come back here and get into a little bit of a deeper dive, but I wanted to make sure I point out some of these key features before we leave this page. So one of the big things that we're going to see, especially when we do our deep dive in a second, we're going to see that there are more than 20 different types of items in Issuetrak Surveys module. That's more than 20 different types of things that you can show to that end user. Some of them are just like our image, right, where we're just displaying something. Some of those are actual questions, though. Most of those are geared to get some feedback from the user. It's very flexible that way because there are so many different types of items. You can zero in on just the type of thing, just the type of feedback you want to get. Then, as we just talked about, we've got multiple deployment options, right? We're flexible in the way we can deploy. We set it up and let survey invitations send automatically, or we can send them manually. We can use any one of many different manual deployment options also. Building a survey is just like using Issuetrak, right? You're logged into Issuetrak, you use the settings and the options within the surveys module to create these things and build them. To me, that makes it a lot easier than going out to a separate tool because you're already using Issuetrak, you're already in there. And then we're going to look at, towards the end of our presentation today, we're going to look at survey results also. You have the ability to view results and report on them. You can also do a complete export. If you just want to get all of your results out and put them into Power BI or put them into Tableau, you can do that. Issuetrak, that's built into the surveys module. Now, let's take a little deeper dive into building a survey and into survey results themselves. And the reason I want to do this, I want to highlight a few more features that you guys are going to find useful and interesting in the module. So I don't think you're going to be able to build a survey for yourself after this, but I think this will give you a really good idea about what you can do with the module. And where I wanted to start, I wanted to dig into this first survey. Now, I created this, I created it on October 31st, right? Halloween, did it on Halloween. I didn't put any ghosts or anything in there, sorry guys. And as I told you guys a minute ago, we start at design. We start by creating a new survey, and we bring that survey through its stages to launch, which starts with design. So I'm going to click there. Now, normally you'd have to create a new survey first or copy an existing survey before you could click on design. I'm going to save you guys that click today by digging in right here. Now, what you see here, these are the different items, and we're finally kind of at the item level. You see this first item is a page heading, right, where it says customer satisfaction, and there's some nice text there. We could put our call to action in there if we needed to. Then the next piece of this is the radio button item, and I'll click edit so you can see how these things are set up. The settings for each different kind of item are different. There's a reason for that, right? Because each different type of item needs different settings to get the right information to display properly. You can see at the top, the first thing we've got to set, besides the item type, that is the question itself. And then when we export results, we get to set an alias for that. So when we're looking at results, we don't have to look at the whole question to know what the result to look at that. We're going to label those results with quality. That's what we're going to call the answer to this question. When we look at a column, when we look at a spreadsheet, we look at it in Power BI, the column is just going to say quality. Now, as we work our way down, there's our required option. All of our questions have that ability to make them required or not required. It's not all items, that's all question items, question type items. And if we get down to the bottom here, we see this thing where I can set up a score based on this question. And you can see that for good responses, I said, okay, give me a negative score for good responses. And for bad responses, make them stand out, give me a positive score. So when I export this data out, I can very quickly highlight the bad responses because those are going to be the ones that lie in positive numbers. I kind of inverted the scale there to make it easier to find the bad results, that actionable feedback that we want to drive to. Now I'm going to cancel out of this. And I wanted you guys to see, normally you'd start with none of these items on the page, right? You build 1, 2, and 3 items here. You build these from scratch because you didn't have something to start with. And I wanted to show you guys that to add items to a page, all we do is click Insert. And really what I wanted everybody who's listening to see is this list right here. So this is a list of the different types of items that we could add to a survey. And you can see there's a ton of them there. Some of these are just for presentation, like our heading or that image, right? That's how we display the image of the car driving down the curvy road. Some of these are open-ended, like my favorite, the comments box, or a one line, right? Or we're giving a date, a number, or one line. But as we work our way up, there's our liker or our matrix, right? I told you guys the matrix is an easy way, multiple lines, one topic per line, and then we're going to get that liker scale on there, right? Do we agree? Do we sort of agree? Are we ambivalent, or do we disagree? And there's all the matrix style items. Now, as we work our way up, you see we've got choice items here, drop downs, radio buttons, true, false, multiple answers, like if we're doing the check boxes where we can select more than one at a time. And at the very top of the page is the attachment. Now, I've never seen a customer, I don't know any customers that are using the survey attachment. Usually, if you want an attachment, you're going to do an issue. You can get that attachment. However, sometimes it's nice to have a screenshot or something along with the survey results. Sometimes the need of our feedback just requires an attachment for some reason. And we can do that in the surveys module. Right, now I'm going to cancel out of this. And since we're kind of diving deep into this, let's go back to our survey list here. And I wanted to dig into results and reporting now. So if we look, here's our list of results, our results overview. And when you first click into your results, you get this overview. It gives you a general sense of kind of what's going on. Like 50% of our respondents said that our quality was fantastic. It's a good thing to have, right?
Yeah.
Good results to have. Now, I created all those survey responses. I didn't have any help, so I was kind of biased in this case, a little bit biased. In fairness, in the interest of total fairness, I created all of these responses. And I wanted to go a little bit more about how we got those, how I did that before we look at individual responses here. Let me click in. And the way I created those responses is I created an extra email box. This is an email box that I only use for testing things in Issuetrak. And I don't check it every day or anything, so please don't send any email here. But you can see that I sent an email into Dana's site to create an issue. I got this submitted on your behalf for issue number 4440. And that created the issue in Dana's demo site. And then her team, well, me, right, the team at that demo site worked on it and resolved it. You can see it right here. There's our resolution, our closed message. When they closed that survey, that issue, because of the survey rules, I got an invitation sent at the same time that the closed message was sent. And you can see that very clearly. The survey was generated as a follow-up to this issue, and here's the actual invitation. Here's the actual survey itself. When I click on this, there's my survey. There's my chance to fill that survey out. Now, when you look at this, I'm going to go back to that inbox before we go back and look at the results that I created. You can see that's the way most of these responses were created, right? There's where I closed 440. Here's where I did it again for issue number 4443. Created it, and then she closed it, and the survey invitation was mailed to me. But then we get up here, and you can see where I emailed myself the link to this survey, right? This one didn't come from Dana's demo site. You can see it came from a different email address. It came from me, my work email. And when we click into that, I used the deployment options that we just got done looking at, copied that link into an email and sent it off. So when you click on this, you're going right out to the same survey that was in that other invitation. I'm going to close both of those so that I can find what I want to show you guys. The other thing that you notice here is that there's a third way of sending survey invitations. Well, there's more than 3 ways, many different ways of getting the survey out there. But for this one, I used Dana's demo site. There's a utility in Issuetrak for sending email to a group of customers, to a bunch of customers. It's part of the user search options. And I used that utility to email the survey invitation out to a bunch of Issuetrak users right here. And they could all click on this link and they'd all be able to fill out the survey. Now let me dig back into our survey itself. Here we go. And we'll go back to surveys. I want to remind you guys about how I got here. So when I click into the results and look, and this is why I like to show, here's our overview. Tells us pretty in general how we did, gives us a good idea. But the real important part of this, the part where we're really going to get actionable feedback, is in the individual responses. So I see all of those comments. And here you can see I've got each individual result, right? This survey was sent. You can see I got the invitation, the information from each person that filled out the survey. In this case, when I filled out the survey, I was logged into Issuetrak. And Issuetrak has the ability to do anonymous surveys, but if you're logged into the same Issuetrak site that you're taking the survey in, well, then Issuetrak knows who you are. So while I was not able to create anonymous surveys and send them, you certainly can, and I can show you how. So you can see it got my name, it got my organization, it got the issue number that this was associated with, the IP address, and lots of other good information. You can see I strongly agreed to the way I said average for quality, strongly agreed to the way my request was handled quickly, but I was unsure about whether they did a great job or whether the guy I worked with was knowledgeable. And this kind of goes back to that voice of the customer, right? What is the temperature of this relationship, right? You can see it's decidedly a little tepid here. They don't strongly agree with me, right? Well, I need to know why that is, and that's where our actionable feedback comes from right here. That's why I really love those comments question. We fixed this guy's problem so quickly that he's not sure whether we did a good job or not. We didn't explain what was going on or how to keep that from happening again to this respondent. So next time maybe we can take a little bit more time and explain that to him, and we'll probably end up with a better result. Now let's look at a few more of these. I want to kind of call everybody's attention to these. This next one here, this came from the invitation that we saw in that inbox, right there for issue number 440. And that's a clickable link. You can see I can click on that and review that issue to see who worked on it. I can see the notes and tasks on that in addition to the survey result. This really gives us that overall view of what the interaction with the customer. And you can see this response, this guy was happy. Well, I was happy in this one, right, because I filled them out. Now, the other one I wanted to point out to everybody, and I don't want to bore everybody with my survey response stories, right? I know that could be exciting for some people, but probably not, because I made all of these up, is I wanted to show everybody that this survey response is a little different, right? The survey responses before this all came with an issue number because they were, the two before this, I should say, came with an issue number because they were sent automatically. If you don't send in survey results automatically, then you don't get the issue number along with it. Very clearly, I think that's kind of should be kind of a given, right? You have to figure out what time or who the survey went to, who filled out the survey to see whose issue it was if you didn't use the Issuetrak survey rules.
And that email survey at the top right hand, is that going to email that survey response?
That's correct.
Okay.
So if I wanted somebody else to see this survey response, they could click on that and it would automatically send this survey result to the appropriate person. So when we're talking about actionable feedback, that becomes really important. Maybe this is feedback that's about one tech in particular, or maybe this is feedback about one process in particular, and I want to email the owner of that process, or I want to email that tech's manager, hey, they said this guy did a really good job, or they said that guy really did a bad job, right? Customer customer, which is something you'd never want to hear, right? You'd want to let that person's supervisor know. And that's the utility for doing that in Issuetrak. Now, one of the things that I also get questions about when we start digging into this is exporting results, right? People want to get this out to Power BI. They want to take it out to a spreadsheet. They want to put it in Tableau or whatever, probably displayed on their web page. And that's where we get into the export data option. Issuetrak has this data, this utility built in, allows us just to take the results and send them out to whatever utility you want to take them out to, whatever other data processing utility you want to take them out to, whether it's for business intelligence, it's just a regular spreadsheet, whichever. And you can see it's pretty flexible. You've got a lot of decisions to make, or you've got a lot of utility and flexibility in what columns are included, in what user data is included, all of this. And I'll back out of that a little bit here. So you can see, there we go. Now, I think that gives us enough of an idea about how the surveys module works and sort of what's going on in there and some of the settings, some of the features and settings that you guys are going to find most useful in the surveys module. But by this point in the presentation, you guys are probably naturally wondering, well, great, it's got all this good stuff in there. How does everybody use that stuff, right? And I can tell you how to configure those items, but in telling you what everybody else, I don't know how all of my customers are using the surveys module. That's where this lady over here comes in. That's where Dana comes in. She's done a lot of research into this. She's talked to customers. She's got a couple of really good stories, really true stories about how our customers use survey results. Dana?
Sure. And now for some examples of how Issuetrak customers have implemented an effective feedback process using Issuetrak's Web Surveys module. So we have a customer, a family-owned, family-run, frozen vegetable business that is 4 generations strong. And they're using Issuetrak for complaint management. They use the Web Surveys module to gather feedback that's used to improve their day-to-day operations. So that's an external use. We have a power company that's responsible for distributing electricity to 14 states. They're using Issuetrak for customer support. And the Web Survey module has provided them with metrics to show a 98% satisfaction rate with their customers.
Talk about actionable feedback, right? They were able to take that feedback and make decisions based directly on those survey responses to get their processes and their operations working properly.
Yeah, and the business owner was able to use that metric to help them prove the ROI of having Issuetrak. We also have a customer that's an IT team for a large public transit operation in Chicago. They're using Issuetrak as a primary service and help desk for issues across their organization. And they utilize the Web Surveys module to ensure that they're hitting their KPIs.
So that's one of the internal uses, right? I know a little bit about this team, and they have a lot of internal. They don't interface with people outside of their organization. All of this is the other departments, the other people within their team, within their company that have IT requests. And that feedback becomes really useful for them in making things go more smoothly and more quickly.
Absolutely.
I think that's about all we had to say for today's webinar, for today's presentation. Dana, is there anything you wanted to add?
Well, I just wanted to thank you, Paul, and thank everyone for attending today's webinar, Transform Feedback into Growth with Web Surveys. Please contact us for information about the Web Surveys module at sales@issuetrak.com. That's sales@issuetrak.com. We really appreciate you being here. We do, as Paul mentioned, have a second webinar that's going to go into more of the meat and potatoes of the Web Surveys module. But we thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.